You're listening to the True Crime Witch podcast, the podcast that takes you into everything murderous, mysterious, and downright macabre. I'm your host Emma, and you're listening to episode 2 of the Doe Diaries, a series where I look at every Doe case solved in 2019. Yes, I am recording this on the same day that episode 1 was recorded, because I have a large chunk of time where I can sort of get, things done. So I thought, why not? And that's why I still sound like shit. And I apologise, I'm sorry. Hopefully by, the next couple of recordings, my ill voice will have dissipated and disappeared into the past. So, until then, you're stuck with sick Emma. So, as always, before we jump into the episode, I'd like to make a disclaimer that the True Crime Witch podcast covers topics such as rape, murder, crimes against children, and other sensitive topics. This podcast won't be for everyone, and your discretion is advised. This is episode 2 of the Doe Diaries, The Sheep Flats Jane Doe. On the morning of July 17th, 1982, two hikers set out along the Sheep Flats on what was to be a sunny and breezy day in the popular hiking area of Washoe County, Nevada, close to Lake Tahoe. Their day was set to be a calm and peaceful one, enjoying the 21 Celsius degree heat, when they came across the body of a 25 to 35-year-old woman who had been sexually assaulted and shot in the back of the head. She had been shot as she was bent over, so possibly tying her shoes, or was bent over in fear for her life. The killer had also concealed the bullet wound with a pair of men's underwear. She was described as 5 foot 8 inches, 112 pounds, and had hazel eyes with brown hair tied into a large bun. Jane Doe was found wearing a pair of size 6.5 yellow tennis shoes, a sleeveless blue shirt that had been sold in California, Washington, and Oregon, and Lee brand jeans with a blue bikini bottom in one of the pockets. She was also wearing a blue swimming costume beneath her jeans instead of underwear. So it appears that Jane had been dressed for a nice day at the lake and had planned on swimming. That's, something that women usually do, is they'll put their cosy on, put their clothes on, go swimming, take their underwear with them. It's just so much quicker, like when you get in the changing room, just whip your clothes off, go swimming. You don't have to get changed as much. I don't know why I have to explain that to you guys, but, just in case you were wondering why she was wearing it, underclothes. So, because the blue shirt is only sold on the West Coast, meaning California, Washington, and Oregon, investigators believe that she had lived in those states before her death, and she was just visiting the area. Upon autopsy, she was found to have a vaccination scar on her upper left arm. She also had a scar on her abdomen, which could possibly be from having a cesarean, meaning that somewhere out there is possibly a living direct relative of this Jane Doe. Her autopsy also revealed that Jane's last meal was a salad, meaning that she was either very healthy or came from a culture that features salad heavily as a lunch or evening meal. So, linking to this, her vaccination scar and dental work revealed that she might actually be from Europe, but the actual country was never specified. Now, I don't know how this works around the rest of the world, but my vaccinations were always either top left or top right of my arm. I can't remember which one. I'm going to go with top left of my arm. So if you're from, the US, maybe a different part of Europe, any other country, let me know about how vaccinations are done in your country, because I always just assumed that it was the bog standard, top left part of arm, bang, done, out the door. But, I guess it could be wrong. According to Unidentified Wikia, further testing of her dental work carried out by an independent organisation in 2010 actually disputed the fact that she was from Europe. So her dental work is mentioned in the official Washoe County Sheriff's Office press release as, quote, extensive dental work by more than one dentist, which included a porcelain-faced, 3-tooth gold bridge on the upper left side of her mouth, as well as several other permanent and temporary fillings and crowns." End quote. Further testing, and it's not been specified whether this was genealogical, isotope, etc., revealed that Jane Doe had spent most of her time in the western United States, such as Alaska, Nevada, California, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, Hawaii, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. The only clue in what had happened to Jane was a set of 2 footprints leading up to the Sheep Flats area of the Mount Rose hiking trail, but only one set of footprints leading away from her body and to the parking area. Did Jane Doe know her attacker? And, is that why he was able to lure her to a secluded area of a hiking trail and shoot her? Or was Jane forced up there under the threat of a gun before her attacker ultimately struck? It seems the investigation after 1982 went cold, with no leads as to the identity of Jane or her killer. Now, that doesn't mean local police gave up, though. They've put out appeals for tips and information, but it seemed that there was only one person that had the answers. Her killer. And he wasn't likely to give them up anytime soon. The DNA Doe Project is a volunteer organisation that harnesses the use of genealogical DNA to help in the identification of Jane and John Does. Now, they are actually one of the go-to organisations for law enforcement and medical examiners alike, and they have been the key in some of the big profile Doe cases, such as the Orange Socks Jane Doe, which I have covered in a previous episode on the podcast, so I won't be including her in the Doe Diaries because, I'll just link to that episode. So, funnily enough, I found out that the DNA Doe Project is funded solely on donations from the public and, true crimers like us, true crime weirdos like us who never want to give up hope. And there is some good news that I'm going to get to. So the good news is that at the moment there are currently no active DNA Doe cases that require funding. Yay! I wrote that at the beginning of January, so that could have changed. But as far as I know, there are no cases that require, additional funding for testing. But just because there are no active cases that don't require funding for testing, that doesn't mean that the DNA Doe Project don't need our help. So please consider donating to the DNA Doe Project, as they do the most incredible, amazing work, and they help bring our does home. And hopefully in future, if I'm in, Canada or the US or wherever wherever else they want to operate, hopefully one day I can be part of the DNA Doe Project team, because that would be pretty fucking awesome. That's like a goal. And in honour of these episodes, I'll be making a £10 donation to the DNA Doe Project. And if you don't just want to make a donation, they actually have merch available. So, if you'd like to get a t-shirt or a jumper or a bag, spread the word. All of the money goes to help fund all of this testing, because, my God, it is not cheap. As someone who did a forensic science and criminology degree, I can attest to you that none of this testing is cheap. It's not cheap and it ain't quick. So instrumentation costs a bomb. You have to pay someone, like a lab technician like me, for their time, interpretation of results, etc., etc. It soon snowballs into a large amount of money and even a larger amount of time, which is why these cases take time. It's not like you see on the CSI programs where they're like, bing, put the DNA in the system, and like 2 seconds later they're like, yeah, it's him. No. I mean, for the sake of me and every other technician out there, I wish it was that easy, because sometimes the matching can be painstaking, sometimes it's months, sometimes you're staring at the screen just looking at the same results over again, thinking, surely if I look at it sideways this time something will change. But anyway, let's get back on. Got off on a bit of a ramble there. So, if you wish, you can also sponsor a certain doe, as I know the lovely ladies at the Crime Junkies podcast and their wonderful listeners have already done so. And this is in order to help pay for specific testing needed for that doe. So, you can do like a blanket donation just to help them. Or if there's a specific doe that you would like to pay for the testing, you can sponsor them. And possibly in the future, if there is a case on the DNA Doe Project that comes up that needs funding, I might take on the sponsorship and obviously ask you guys to help too. Fast forward to 2018, when the DNA Doe Project announced that they had done further testing and provisionally identified the sheep flat Jane Doe. They announced to the public that they were doing further work with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office in order to make a complete confirmation and notify the family before going public, which I like. So the Detroit Police Department also cooperated, according to an article in the Reno Gazette-Journal written by Marcelo Corona, Sam Gross, and Brett McGinnis in May of 2019. They provided the fingerprints of Mary Silvani from 1974, which was a misdemeanor arrest, which provided a match to the sheep flat Jane Doe. This case was then escalated to further testing such as DNA to make a complete confirmation of her identity. So, on May 7th, 2019, Washoe County Sheriff's Office held a public press conference in which they revealed that the identity of the sheep flat Jane Doe was that of Mary Edith Silvani, born September 29th, 1948, which made her 33 years old at the time of her murder in 1982. Mary Edith Silvani was born to John Edward Silvani, an Italian immigrant, and her mother, Blanche Curry, was a Canadian citizen, so hence the Italian ancestry, and indicators pointing to Europe during forensic testing because of her background. So Mary was born in Pontiac, Michigan, but grew up in the big bustling city of Detroit and attended Mackenzie High School. Now, from the digging that I did, the 1966 yearbook had photos of Mary, but there is never any mention of her graduating, and there are no senior photos of her. So, whether she graduated, I don't know. So, this is where Mary's story gets sad. So, Mary did not have an easy life, as her father John died when she was just 16 years old, leaving her homeless. Now, her mother, Blanche Curry, was actually absent in her life due to her being in and out of various mental institutions over the years before she passed away in 1980. So, I'm not blaming her mother for being absent in her daughter's life. That's completely not that. But obviously, her mother wasn't there. Her father had passed away. She's 16. She's homeless. I'm guessing there's no wonder she didn't graduate high school. That's an incredibly tough time for anyone to go through, never mind a 16-year-old who is now facing the prospect of being out on the street. When Mary was just 24 years old, she gave birth to a child which she gave up for adoption, although I can't seem to find many details about this child. It seems that following this traumatic event, she moved to California to start fresh. So she did give birth to a child, and as I said, the cesarean scar on what was then sheep flat Jane Doe, obviously the details are starting to match. With the identification of our victim also came the identification of the person who so cruelly snatched her life away from her. James Richard Curry was identified the same way that Mary was, through forensic genetic genealogy, and it's thought to be the first case where this has ever been possible. When DNA evidence from the crime scene didn't ping any hits in the FBI's CODIS, which is the Combined DNA Index System, police tried a new tactic, and sent the DNA for private analysis to be uploaded to the website GEDmatch or GEDmatch.com in 2018. So after 2,000 hours of research and damn fucking hard work, Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, a genealogist who works for the DNA Doe Project, was able to track down living relatives of Curry. Dr. Fitzpatrick and her team found that Curry's grandparents had lived in Dallas, Texas, and then worked their way through the family tree that way. From there, they were able to track down the family tree and come to the conclusion that Curry had 2 living biological children. His 2 own children, so the living biological ones, of course, voluntarily provided DNA samples to the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, and boom, it was a partial match to the DNA collected in 1982. Richard James Curry was born in 1946 in Texas and is convicted of killing Gerald Novoselic, who was 39, and his wife Sharon Novoselic, who was 34, on January 2nd, 1983. Gerald is said to have been killed in the Novoselic family home on 1020 Spring Street in San Jose, California, while Sharon's body was found at the side of the Highway 92 in San Mateo County, California. Curry was quickly apprehended for this crime, with police managing to catch up with the killer within 2 days of his crime, so on January 4th, 1983, so good police work. So the murder of Novoselic was 5 months before the murder of Mary Silvani, and almost a year before his first actual possible murder. So Richard Lemon was apparently his first victim, and killed by Curry in February of 1982. Once Curry had killed Lemon, he hid his body in a storage facility where he worked on 1700 De La Cruz Boulevard in Santa Clara, California. Now, it wasn't until the confession from Curry that Lemon's body was discovered. Now, sadly, Curry took the coward's way out on January 5th, 1983, when he was found hanged in his Santa Clara County jail cell. It seems that Curry had survived and had to be placed on life support in an effort to bring him back to life. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at justice and restorative justice, Curry died on January 7th, 1983, taking God knows how many more secrets to his grave. Quote, "I just want to let her know that she was loved. I never knew my aunt. It would be nice if I could do something for her," end quote, which is a quote from Mary's nephew, Robert Silvani, who is now 53 years old. And something nice he did. He has since pledged to get his auntie a brand new headstone bearing her name and true identity, which is something that she deserves after all these years. Mary Edith Silvani's case is now officially classed as closed. Although her parents and many of her family have passed without ever knowing what became of their loved one, Mary is now able to rest easy now that she has her name back and that her killer can't hurt anyone else. So that was a sort of nice, I don't want to say nice ending because none of these cases are nice. It's a nicer ending to the aspect of true crime that we don't always see. You know, Doe's getting their name back and finding out, you know, putting the pieces together of the mystery and some closure. And poor Robert, you know, he never knew his Auntie Mary, but a murder in the family is still pain, it's still grief, it's still a what could have been, you know, what could have our relationship been, what would she have thought of my children, what would my children have thought of her, my partner's friends, family, etc. So I'm glad that Mary now has closure, her killer, piece of shit, can't hurt anyone else, this case is closed. Some really, really incredible detective work, and of course incredible work by the DNA Doe Project. So go and donate to the DNA Doe Project. I will leave a screenshot of proof of my donation on my Patreon and my social media too. And stay tuned because Doe Diaries 3 will be coming very, very soon. Remember friends, stay safe and stay spooky.